Tournament is about to get underway. Go to 68. Things tip off tonight, and we have a lot of prospects to talk about as far as the NCAA tournament gets underway, and the Sixers still trying to hang on. At least we want them to, that top 6 protected pick, so they can have an opportunity to potentially draft one of these talented young players to help out for next season. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Tuesday, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365 with Derik Queen and Kon Knueppel. I'm Devon Givens. Bree is here with us as well. All of you, thanks for hanging out with us on this Tuesday afternoon, our only 3 p.m. show this week. But we have a lot of guys to talk about, Derik, because we've got into the Ace Bailey conversation, the Dylan Harper part of things. Those two are eliminated from the tournament already. They are out. Ace Bailey fouling out in the game. Dylan Harper played a tremendous game, but they didn't advance, and they really needed to advance in order to get a longer run of seeing them in conference play. And then tournament play that they were trying out for, it did not happen. So they're eliminated right now. But most of the guys are still available at the top, from Cooper Flagg, all the Duke guys, Baylor, Texas, even in the field of 68 part of it, where Texas is still involved, and so many others that we will talk about here this afternoon that we haven't gotten a chance to discuss. So, well, we need to start off with Cooper Flagg, because last night during your daily tankathon spin, you got the number 1 overall pick, and you did ask, who are you taking? Well, it's that guy from Duke, and supremely talented, multi-talented guy. He's been on the radar for like the last 3 years, where he's been practicing with NBA stars, crushing in high school, transferring to a different high school because of how good he was playing at Montverde his final year, and now on to Duke and still holding on. A lot of times they try to push guys out. Well, this guy's catching up to him, and he's now taking over. But even after all of that, he's still the top tier for you, as you have pointed out, of the prospects here for the Sixers or for the NBA draft.
Yeah, he's in that class because, like, a lot of times when we get close to the draft, we want to kind of make it an argument, even if in our heads we know it's not really an argument. Like, you kind of want to have the discussion. It's good for shows like this. It's good for draftniks who need to get out content. Oh, let's manufacture some debate. There is no debate. Like, Cooper Flagg is at the point where he could tear his ACL tomorrow. I would still and be out for the entire next season.
Don't say those words, sir. Come on. Don't say those words.
Where he could do that, and I would still take him number 1. Not even think, spend a second questioning it. He is far and away the best two-way prospect in this draft. It's not even close, and I would have no reservations taking him. Like I said, there's, to me, as good as Dylan Harper has been, and I think he surprised us a little bit. Like we've mentioned, Ace Bailey sort of came into the season as the more heralded of the two prospects. Dylan Harper blew right past him. You'd be really happy to add him to your team. But if I'm looking at one player who has a chance to really be a franchise-defining player, that's Cooper Flagg, and it's not close.
Yeah, and Derik, you say that, the franchise-defining player thing, and I do agree with it. But the interesting thing right now is that it depends on how you look at it, glass half full, glass half empty. One of the things with Flagg is that, at least on offense, you're looking at him as like, where does he go, right? Like, what kind of does the future look like for him? He doesn't have necessarily the one thing that's like, this is what Cooper Flagg does. It's that he does everything. He's a Swiss Army knife guy, right? Like, he has come on as a shooter down the stretch this season once they got into ACC play, conference play, improved his game there. The spot up numbers are pretty good. And add that on to, he's a good short roll player. He can pass out of those situations. He can play out of the post. He can attack a mismatch. He can play in isolation. And it's all of these things. But it's not, hey, we're getting this guy who's a pick and roll guard and just putting him in to start the year, and we're just running things through him. You're going to go through this period where it's like, hey, what does a Cooper Flagg future look like? Now, for some teams, that would probably be a downside, right? You're looking, if you're a Washington, if you're a Charlotte, if you're one of these other teams that's at the top of the draft, you want someone to come in right away and just kind of define everything you do. Whereas the Sixers can have the best of both worlds, right? You can certainly design plenty of things around what Flagg is already good at and where you kind of want him to go. But given that you already have veteran talent on hand and you have some big pieces to work around, you can just tap into that versatility. Like for some of the game, you're going to use him as an off-ball roamer, and some of the game you play small ball and he's playing as a short roll guy. And it's just, you can move him all over. He's a really interesting chess piece. And that's without getting to where I think is the even more interesting side of the ball for him, which is defense. And, I think from what I saw of him in international events, some limited high school stuff, he was a different player this year on defense than I think we saw in high school, where in high school you see more of the highlight reel blocks and the big time athleticism plays and all the things that really pop. And John Shire and Duke have asked him to be maybe a little more reserved, right? Like they have Maluach as the rim protector. And so they say, Coop, we don't need you flying in from the weak side and kind of untangling our defense. We want you locked in on rotations, making second efforts on different plays. And he's been excellent in that way. And that's a part of defense that guys at his age are normally not very good at. Like you can be a really good on-ball defender. You can be a good weak side rim protector, but making the second, the third, the fourth rotation, the extra effort and staying engaged all throughout that's a pretty unique thing for a kid his age. And that's one of the reasons that I think that can translate basically right away. I know the speed of the game will be tough. He'll have to deal with some athleticism. The athleticism jump when you go from college to the NBA. But everything you see about him in terms of how he plays the game and thinks the game says this kid will come in right away and be a big time player.
As good as he is, man, I mean, just looking at the ability to score the basketball, the defense, Kyle, that you just talked about picking up, the buy-in that he's had since he's gotten at Duke, because a lot of times when you have these types of players, sometimes you can just read it on them. Where they are there, they're going to be there for a year, which even though despite all the reports out there that he might stay and all that stuff, that he exactly, that he is bought in, he's there, and he looks like a teammate there. He doesn't look like when you were talking last night about Quentin Grimes in the situation that he's in right now with the Sixers, but not hijacking the offense, even though he's dropping career highs of 44 and 46 in these games. He looks like a teammate out there, even though we know that he knows that he's only going to be there for a few more weeks with this group. But he's going out there. He has bought into what they are. You could see how talented he is. The speed of the game thing, you talked about that. It immediately made me think about how he was part of the select team this past summer, where he was with Team USA, with all those guys, and playing with them and the speed of the game there, practicing with these pros over the last couple of years as a high school player, but just being this guy that everybody has known has been on the radar. He has been one of those guys that you've looked at. He's going to be the number one pick in 2025. And while there are other talented players like Harper, Bailey, and so on, but it's not that close where he's the one. And every step of the way, he has looked like he has simply passed that test. And this year one in Duke, his only year at Duke, he's passed that test with the scoring at Duke, with the defensive part that you're talking about. The athleticism is still there. And he just seems like a seamless fit to wherever he goes, whether it's Charlotte, Washington, Philadelphia, Utah, whatever, any one of these cities and franchises that he goes to. He just seems like he's just going to jump right in there and be a very good basketball player. And in the case of this group here in Philly, again, we've talked about all these players and the one beautiful thing, if things pan out. And we're always looking at this as if things pan out, where Joel Embiid is back being enough of a difference maker. Tyrese Maxey is Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George has a better year two than he did a year one. These players, and specifically Flagg here in this case, is not going to have to go in there to be the savior. He can go in there and be a savior because he's that talented, and he will have games where he has that impact, and you can see why he was the number one pick and why the Sixers were so lucky to be in this position to get him. But he can be that third option, that fourth option on certain nights and not have to carry the load where the pressure isn't all on him, and he can just kind of ease into it even though he is supremely talented, and his talent is just going to jump off the screen or jump off the floor in general as he's playing with them and impact it in the ways that he will. I hope he's able to play here in these games starting on Friday for Duke, because like you said, Kyle, we haven't seen them a lot this year. We've seen them enough, but not a lot. We're all going to be locked in because of how much this means for the Sixers. And honestly, because we're basketball fans and we like these talented players coming into the league to make the product better overall for the NBA. And then selfishly, hey, can the Sixers with Derik's tankathon pick, get that #1 pick, can it work out in real life and land this kind of guy? And you can just see him playing with these other players. That's how good he is. Even Brian saying it in the chat, B Knight, he's the perfect fit for the Sixers. We talked about the power forward position. I saw everybody in the chat arguing about Kelly Oubre is kind of growing on them as a quote unquote power forward in this offense. Where there's no question about forward and front court player. You have him and George in your front court with Joel Embiid. That's a damn good front court if the Sixers were lucky enough to get their hands on this guy.
Yeah, and Kyle brought up, processing speed, and a lot of times that's brought up offensively. Decisiveness, seeing the floor, read and reacting. But he shows that on defense too. Like his defensive instincts and his defensive ability to process the game and see what's going on in front of him and make the right rotations and make the right just instinctive plays is off the charts. And, a lot of times freshmen, when they get to conference play tends to be interesting in part because it's just higher level of competition, especially when you're talking about the ACC, but in part because it gives teams a chance to scout. The team gives teams a chance to watch, play them a second time, see what worked the first time, and adjust their game plan in ways that you can't really do when it's just a one-off, especially early on in the season. And he tore up the ACC in conference play. 21.2 points, 7.1 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.3 blocks, 44% from three-point range, and 54% from the field. And that is probably a better representation of just his upside than even his season stats as a whole. He got much better as the season wore on, as the competition ramped up, and as teams had a chance to scout on him. He had more answers than teams had to throw at him. And it was just a really, really impressive. Like, if you had any kind of doubt, because I remember talking earlier in the season, it's like, all right, well, what's his offensive upside? Is he just obviously he's an incredible, impactful defender, but can he be a legitimate option? And is he going to be relegated to only being a third option? I think he showed you he has more upside than that. I think he showed you that shot is further along than maybe we thought. And his ability to process the game isn't just defensively, but it's offensively as well, as he's really able to set his teammates up. It's just a real good season. It's really, I don't want to say it's under the radar, but like he's not getting the kind of hype of maybe like a Zion, even though he's coming in without those injury concerns. But I think he had that level of a season.
Yeah, and look, Derik, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look at some of these other guys we were talking about early in the season, right, like Igor Demon at BYU, who I think we'll probably talk about a little bit at some point later in the show, he came out like the house on fire to start the season, right? He's hitting all his threes, he's putting up flashy passing numbers, and everyone's like, oh, wow, man, this guy might be a top 5 pick. We underestimated him coming into the year. And then BYU starts to play tougher teams. They get out of the non-conference schedule. They're playing their conference opponents. And his numbers went off a cliff. Like, he's not able to get by people. He's turning the ball over more, and he's shooting worse. And so it's not to say we always love, right, like a nice linear, you start the year one way and then you get better and better and better. Like that's easier for all of us to accept. It's why for many people, Michael Jordan's career arc will never be surpassed, because it was, he struggled, and then he won 6 titles, had 2 3-peats, and it's like a sports movie, basically. But for Flagg to level up like this, for him to show the, number one, the skill, but also the game intelligence and the adaptability to improve like this over the second half of their season has been really awesome to watch. And, Devon, you brought up that comment from Brian about fit. And sometimes there are big arguments in the draft community between fans, media, analysts, whoever, about, how much you place on fit and how much you place on upside. And that's a constant push and pull in both directions. Well, here's the thing with Cooper Flagg. His fit is not just with this roster. this kid can play with just about anybody, right? He has such a well-rounded skill set that, like, if you bring up fit for Flagg as a strength in draft conversations, it's not about going to an individual team or the 15 guys who are on the roster currently. It's that if you take this kid, you have every possible option that you could want moving forward, because he is the modern NBA player, right? Like, big, athletic, can shoot, can handle, can play on ball, can play off ball, can defend multiple positions. Like, there is no team that you would draft Cooper Flagg into or you would say, boy, I'm worried about how this guy fits with him, or vice versa. It's that, as a starting point, just allows you to go into so many different directions with everything else you do with the roster. And so that, normally I would say, I don't care so much about fit. I want the best prospect. I want the guy that you think can be a franchise anchoring player. Well, he can be that, but he also just keeps all these options open for you as you look at the long term.
Yeah, it's one thing to, like, I don't care about fit with the current personnel. I do care about fit with any personnel, especially like we've seen with the Sixers, so many number one picks. Ben Simmons won't shoot. Markelle Fultz couldn't shoot. Joel Embiid's a post up big. Like, they were all in their own unique ways tricky fits alongside various other archetypes. And to have a franchise talent be able to fit with any, theoretical 1, 2, 3 options around him, it's just it's a gift. It really is.
Yes, it is. And he's a very talented guy. Do we just ask that the NBA, in order for the NBA to not be investigated, you don't have to fall into the narrative of him going to Utah? All right. Doesn't have to be.
I'm glad you brought it up, so I didn't have
to. Doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. So we'll see what happens with the tournament with Cooper Flagg starting on Friday. Looks like he might be able to play with the injured ankle that he suffered during the conference tournament. But they did do well and still play well in the ACC tournament, as we talked about. And that's because they have some other players that are going to be potential lottery picks here in the upcoming draft. We'll talk about them as we keep an eye on Flagg. You can't help but to pay attention to them as well. We'll discuss those other Duke players when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Bet365. And I have to tell you about TrueMark Financial, the credit union. Great place. It's almost spring. Well, we're here basically, and that means it's time to spring into savings, everybody. Spring into savings. Save that money. The big stuff is happening this summer. You want to go on this particular vacation. You got to take this. You got to put some money away for a rainy day, for a unexpected trip that you might need to make, or something along those lines. And you want to be prepared. You want to make sure that you have the right financial situation squared away, and that is with TrueMark Financial. If you have financial goals of other things like buying a house, we already talked about taking a dream vacation, or building your emergency fund, TrueMark Financial Credit Union has the perfect savings accounts for you. TrueMark Financial offers higher rate certificates and money market accounts to help your money grow faster and work harder for you. It's March. We're going to creep up on April here very shortly as we get through the middle of this month, and you're going to start to look at different things that you want to do, like going on those vacations, maybe buying that house, maybe you're looking for a new car, maybe you want to purchase season tickets because Cooper Flagg is going to be a member of your basketball team, and you want to make sure that you have the right money squared away to make sure that you're at those games in person to watch this talented young player. If you do need to do that and you're looking for a place to go, TrueMark Financial is the place for you. So visit TrueMark.com for rates and learn more. And to learn more, visit TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCAA, equal opportunity lender. Rates are subject to change.
Well, and not only do you need a place to put your money, but you need something to track your money as well, because gosh knows my money can leave in many ways that really, really can be cleaned up. Finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. It's more than your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for your accounts, investments, and goals. Start managing your finances to build the life you actually want. Monarch makes managing money simple, even for busy lives. With all your accounts, credit cards, and investments in one place, you'll always know where your money stands without the hassle. Track your spending, savings, and investment effortlessly so you can focus on what matters most, making your biggest life goals a reality. Monarch Money was named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025 and the top recommended personal finance app by users and experts with over 30,000 five-star reviews. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code PHLY at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code PHLY.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Bet365. And let's stay with Duke here, Kyle, and talk about, because of while we like Adem Bona, like him quite a bit. You know, there's another big man that is very highly rated from the Duke Blue Devils that has been talked about a lot. And I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Is it Cayman Maluach? Is that how you pronounce it?
Nailed it. Well, I know the last name, Maluach.
Okay.
I won't say I know the first name for sure, but Maluach is correct.
Yes. So 7'2", 250, young guy. And again, just another fantastic freshman season there with the Duke Blue Devils. And we'll see him on Friday as well. But just a really, again, highly talented guy. Defensively, you look at him at that 7'2" frame, playing behind Joel Embiid. We've been talking about having just a fantastic backup big behind him. And that would be an intriguing one if the Sixers were in a position of, let's say they're at 6 and all those other guards and wings are gone and he's staring you right in your face. And it would be one that you can understand why they would go in that direction.
Yeah, it's one where you'd probably have to have greater certainty around Joel Embiid's health than you have right now. Although you could argue, if there is such uncertainty by the time they're making a pick in, late June, almost heading into free agency, that alone says it all. And I think the case for Maluach is that they just don't make guys this big who can actually move their feet, right? He's a real 7'2", and is not just a stand in the paint. Now, albeit he is definitely better as a drop rim protector, like use the size and length around the rim, and is still a little bit raw and unpolished. Like, I believe he played soccer for a lot of his life before making the jump to basketball, which I love personally, as I wear my soccer hat over here. So there's some stuff that he's going to have to clean up over the long term. But when you watch him and how they've used him at Duke, one of the things I think is really surprising is that they've pretty freely switched him for a lot of this year. This has not been like hey, we designed our whole scheme around, we just keep this guy near the rim. They have said to Maluach, like, you're going to step out and guard guys on the perimeter. Now, that doesn't always work out for him, right? There are times when you can see he's 7'2" and is not going to move as fast as some of these shifty guards in the ACC. But to already see the groundwork for a guy who can step out and switch, who at the very least could play up high against pick and rolls, right? Like, show that length, trap a ball handler if necessary, and then get back to the rim where he's going to have his big impact on defense. That, as much as this is a wing league these days, as much as this is a spread it out, play pick and roll league these days, if you can lock down the paint, that is still one of the most valuable traits you can have. And certainly as a big man, it's something that I covet, that I think all of us covet. Now, the other end of the floor, he's got a lot more work to do. Like, he is still very much just a play finisher. He's an elite play finisher. I think he's shooting something like 68 or 69% from the field. Speaks to the type of shots that he's taking. And if you're trying to project moving forward, he's been a pretty good free throw shooter this year. I think he's around mid-70s, 74, 75% in that range, which for a guy his size, that's pretty dang good. You're not seeing him tap into the shooting much yet, and I would imagine that would be a long-term development that you'd have to bank on. But I think if you're of the mindset that either you need a long-term heir for Joel Embiid, or you just don't believe he's ever going to be healthy again, and you get past that top 5 and say, I just have concerns about, is Yakachonis explosive enough to be a league guard? Is Jeremiah Fears somebody who I trust as the the on-ball guy, and you know, how does that work with the other pieces? And the Sixers just end up saying, hey, give us this physical freak who's got some, you know, already, even though he's raw, is showing good game intelligence and good reading of the floor as a rim protector. It would not be the craziest thing in the world. I do think it's pretty unlikely, though, from where we sit today.
Speaking of those crazy measurements, it was even this was the Hoop Summit last year. 7'1.5" in shoes, 7'6" wingspan, 9 foot 6.5 inch standing reach.
Insane.
That is basically a Wemby number. Like, that is right there with Wemby in terms of measurables. And you can see that impact defensively. Like, he is going to be a really good shot blocker. And like Kyle mentioned, he can move his feet on the perimeter. Not that you're going to want him to do that, in part because he is going to get burned by misdirection at times. He's just not going to change direction quite as quickly as a guard with the ball in his hands, but also because you want that elite shot blocking to be at the rim. We went through this with Joel Embiid, especially earlier in his career, where it's not that he couldn't hang on the perimeter. It's that you wanted him where he could make the most impact. But it is, I mean, that's what he is. He's a huge human being, pretty good defensive instincts, who's really good at rolling to the rim offensively. It's not all he does. I do think there's some hope for that jumper. You know, not only the free throw shooting, but some of the mechanics from mid range can look okay. I think he's only made like 2 or 3 threes, but I think talking to some people, there's some confidence he can at least develop that mid range jumper and maybe extend it out farther in time. But he's a play finisher. Like, you're not going to ask him to really create anything in the half court, and that's fine. Like, I think he could end up being a really borderline elite defender who has a chance to at least be competent, like I said, as a rim runner, as a lob threat. I'm gonna have a lot more fun watching basketball next year if he's on the squad. The question is that worthy of a top 5 pick? And part of that comes down to what are the other options and what are your evaluations of the other options around him? Do you see anybody else with any kind of star equity? And can you get like 90% of that potential and of that archetype later on in the draft at a less premium, pick? And I think those are fair questions. You know, I think he is a really intriguing talent. I would be a little surprised if they went with a center with this high of a resource, but I think he's a really, like, if the jump shot was a little more obviously projectable, I think I would be pretty close to all in. Like I said, I'm intrigued by it. I think there's some reason to believe it could happen, but I would sort of want that element to be surefire to use. I mean, this is just a really unique, really valuable resource the Sixers have that they don't have all that often.
So the thing about him is when we talk a lot about Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, you start with those two, then you look at some of the other guys in the next tier going down, of course, when all healthy, where so many people talk about having a center and how that doesn't really do much for a lot of people in the offensive end in today's game, unless you're special like those two are. But then you look at how they're built around. When we talk about building around and Flagg, just drop him into any organization, any roster, he fits in. Kyle, when you look at Maluach and the type of center that he is, and you look at different situations like Toronto maybe or Chicago, teams that don't necessarily have guys that you see them long term at that 5 spot, but building around a player like this, what is the best way to build around a player like this who's not necessarily offensive minded yet, still very raw, but the defensive things are there, the athleticism is there. He's not Victor Wembanyama, of course, but he has those measurables. How do you build around a player like this guy especially when you take him so high and he's so important to what your future could be?
Yeah, I mean, the good news for him if he comes to Philadelphia is he has some of the stuff that he needs, right? Like between Maxey and McCain, you can get, while I don't think either of those guys are at the high end of the, pick and roll playmaking partner, I think both of those guys can put enough pressure as ball handlers and will look for a lob threat enough that you'll take advantage of him on the offensive end. Because what he is coming here for is the other end right away, right? Like you're getting on that rookie deal, you would hope for 4 years of maybe like the first year is he's dealing with foul trouble. Like one of the things I think is worth noting, I think he's only playing something like 21 minutes a game this year. Now that's not because he's been fouling like crazy and fouling out of games, but there's also like you have to build him up to the conditioning level to play 30 to 35 minutes a night as a rookie or a young player. You do have to work on the propensity to foul and not chase everything, and some of the things we've talked about with Adem Bona. But like, so you give him the guys who can create their own offense and create offense for him to simplify his life, because on the other end of the floor, he simplifies things for everybody else, right? When you know, and we saw it with, this is not to say that he's going to be a Joel Embiid peak defender, because Joel was a defensive player of the year candidate and all defense type guy when he was at his best. But we've seen the impact that a transformative rim protector can have on a team, right? That guy can make players who barely deserve to be in the NBA look like they're competent defenders, because all they need to do is funnel guys correctly or into a general space, and then somebody like a Maluach can clean all that up at the back end. So if you believe in that defensive upside, I think there's a great argument to go after him, because that guy sets the defense. Like, that's you kind of, it's not to say that you can just play bad defenders everywhere else, but it doesn't put as much strain on the rest of your decisions, whether it's draft, free agency, trades, to get like high-end defensive guys. You can say, okay, we need more offensive help. We'll get more offense first players, more shooters, more slashers, like people who can get to the rim, create, and make his life easier on that end. That would be sort of the vision for how you build out around a player like that.
Yeah, no, I think he's a real easy fit for the most part. Like I said, the only real question I have is, are any of the other 3 or 4 or 5 people we'll talk about in this range, do any of them have the kind of star equity that would be tough to pass on? Because I think he would be a really good fit. I think has a really good chance to be a good player for a long time. And I think it's a position they need with how much uncertainty there is around Joel Embiid. A lot of it is going to come down to the rest of my evaluations on the other options.
All right, we got to keep the guys going with Duke. So let's take a quick break and come back. We'll get to, so we don't have to rush through KK and the shooting and all that he does, because that's what I'm referring to him as. He's KK. We'll talk about him when we get back.
I will not be referring to another person as KK. I'll tell you that.
Well, we only gave him 2. So it's all right. We'll come back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Bet365.
Guys, it's warming up in Philadelphia, and it's never too early to start thinking about the summer and the sun, protecting your eyes, being outside all day, working, having fun, going to the beach, doing whatever you're doing. Shady Rays, our good friends, have your back with premium polar eye shades that will not break the bank. Their sunglasses have durable frames, crystal clear optics. They are the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They're also the great choice for when we're in the studio and we have a Future is Bright segment. Can wear a nice colorful shirt, put your Shady Rays on, you're looking stylish. They match with all types of different outfits and scenarios that you could want. And hey, with so many colors available, you can find a pair that's perfect for you. They might even be in your favorite team's colors. Here's the best part, guys. Their protection program and their ability for you to exchange things is wonderful. If your shades ever go missing or they take an unexpected hit, you don't have to worry about it. They have the best protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacement program. And if you don't love them when they show up, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days, because Shady Rays is confident when that product shows up at your door, either you'll love it or they will find you a pair that works best for you. So PHLY viewers and listeners, go to shadyrays.com and save 35% off of polarized sunglasses with the code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars. So use code PHLY today at shadyrays.com.
My turn to tell you about our presenting sponsor. As always on this show, the Bet365, 90 million users worldwide. I'm one of them. You need to be one too. They have over 780,000 live streamed events each year. Early payout offers across the NBA and the NHL. They've pioneered live and in-game betting with Bet365. So last night we had someone say in the chat that they adjusted the 11.5 rebounds from Şengün to 10.5. I think it was John Peace, and they hit on it with the Grimes number for the parlay with Şengün. Live in-game betting. You just adjust the number and you're all good. Winner right there. And you love it right there at Bet365. New customers, by the way, can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. So if you're unfamiliar with all this, you hear us talking about it and our winnings, and you want to be a part of it, you bet that $5 and you get that $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365 when you do, deposit 10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Again, that is win or lose. The early payout offers are there for you in the NHL and the NBA. Your team goes up by 20 like Philadelphia did last night. We didn't expect it, but maybe you did. You got that early payout as a winner for the game. And it's Tuesday, folks. Tip-off Tuesdays for the NBA at Bet365. Place a qualifying parlay bet totaling $20 or more on tonight's NBA games and get up to 25 in bonus bets. Of course, terms and conditions do apply. So bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by good friends from Bet365 there. Hopefully you can go ahead and sign up, become a member at Bet365. Let's talk about Kon there and the ability to score that he does for Duke and what he brings to the table as a prospect. Derik, when you look at Kon, what do you see in him and his ability? I saw some of his comps. We haven't brought up comps for any of the other players, but I brought up this because when I saw the comps, they had to be two other white guys that he's compared to, Corey Kispert and Kevin Huerter.
It's law, Devon. White prospect, white comparison.
Although they did give one more. I think it was John Wasserman of NBA.com. Also says Sadiq Bey from Washington right now is another comp. But I felt that was funny that you had to go there. Derek, Bootzilla says, Kon. So there you go. What do you think?
I mean, look, his shot is potentially elite, and it's really good in a lot. Like, he's got a quick release, he's got a high release, he can shoot off of screens, he can get to his spots a little bit off the dribble because of his misdirection. He's real good at using the threat of the shot to draw out a closeout and then just take a couple of dribbles to get where he needs to go. There is a very obvious pathway to him as an NBA. There's an NBA role for him, and it's real easy to see. He's got great feel for the game. He's got good instincts. Trusts his decision making. He's got all of that going for him. And quite frankly, he finishes, I think, probably better at the rim than you would expect. He's obviously not a nuclear athlete or even close to it. He has really good body control. Like, when you talk about athleticism, that kind of balance I think that he has is something that is hard to teach. And it helps make the most of his, physical profile. The concern is that physical profile is not great. Like, his athleticism is nowhere near being elite or even good for an NBA caliber player. I think that probably limits his top scoring option upside. I do trust some of the, like I said, his decision making, his ability to use the threat of that shot to get to his spots. But I think that might just be more realized as a second or third option. I'm just not sure I see star player upside. But I do think, if I have one concern, because I think he can be an elite, potentially like top level development, a really good third option. My question is, can he hang defensive? Lateral foot speed, I think he's had a real problem. I don't think that's going to get any better in the NBA. It's one thing to overcome a lack of lateral foot speed offensively, because the spacing in the NBA is going to be so much better, because you can use the threat of that shot to get where you need to go. Defensively, it's really hard to hide that. And I do think he's at a pretty serious disadvantage defensively because of that.
So, fun fact about Mr. Knueppel. Did you know both his parents are the all-time leading scorers at the colleges they went to? His mom is the all-time leading scorer at Wisconsin Green Bay. His dad is the all-time leading scorer for Wisconsin Lutheran College. So there's a nice deep cut for you. And I believe his uncle might have played briefly for the Bucks and had a long basketball career. So a crazy basketball family. We will not point out how many K names are in that family because that gets into what I was alluding to before the break. However,
fair enough. Fair enough.
Good size, like a real 6'7", as far as we can tell. And as Derik said, you know, when you have the sort of quick release and shooting ability that he does, and he's been an elite spot up guy for basically his whole career that has been tracked, right? Like dating back through high school. Once again here at Duke, although he started a little bit slow, he's really come on, just like Cooper Flagg has played better, and you know the numbers have normalized there. So a guy who knows who he is as a shooter, and you know will get to the right spots, but also attack closeouts selectively and aggressively. Like that's a player that appeals to me. I do think there's some pick and roll upside with him too. Like he's got some decent feel as a passer. He's good at the little drop off passes when he can get to the paint. He had a lot of hockey assists too. Like some of the passes that we saw from like a DeAnthony Melton or a Nick Batum when those guys were here, just the instinct to know now's the time to make the extra pass and not shoot. He's been very good at that. But I share a lot of Derik's concerns regarding the physical profile. And also just, you know, if you're talking about a top 5, top 6 pick, I want to aim higher, right? It's not to say that I think he's going to be a bad player. I think he's someone that, you know, I think realistic upside, maybe he's like a 4th, 5th starter, but more likely probably just a high-end role player. That's a good player to get if you were to get that type of player in the back half of the lottery or as like a top 20 guy. I'd feel pretty good about that. When you're talking about a top 5 or 6 pick in a class that we believe has at least a star candidate, if not several in this class, it's a little bit of a harder sell for me to say, you know, give me this guy that I think probably tops out as a role player or just a back end starter. But I do think he could play here or just about anywhere, because when you shoot the ball like he does, and when you have good instincts against closeouts and can leverage playing off of stars, right? Like if you're talking about a rookie who can come in and make an impact right away on a veteran team, it's somebody that's used to playing off of the high volume guys, off of a Cooper Flagg. Like I think he can scale pretty easily off of Maxey, off of Embiid, off of Paul George, like whoever it might be. He'll open up the floor for those guys and he'll take advantage of his opportunities. So that has some appeal for me. And I think he's got good instincts. I just don't know that he has the physical traits to be able to defend at an NBA level.
Yep. It really is like there's very easy way to like project him into an NBA role offensively. Very easy. Like you really don't even you don't have to squint at all. Does he have star upside on that end? And if not, can he defend at a high enough level where like you're comfortable him being on the floor for 30 minutes per night, which you would want if you're going to invest a top 6 pick in him. It really does feel like it's a story of the draft where there's a lot of intriguing players in sort of like that 4 through 10 range, but I'm not sure there's anyone that most people are looking at have that kind of star level upside, even like I said, squinting at it. And it probably feels like that's where this sort of, if there's a weak part of this draft, because I think a lot of people like the top 2. I think there's a lot of people who like sort of like some of the role players or people with potential in the teens and 20s. It's a lot of these players, and Kon is right there with them, have intrigue, but a lot of questions and not really any kind of, like I said, star equity seems like it's lacking in this spot.
And shooting, of course, translates no matter what, as long as the guy can still knock those shots down with all the people that will be around him and getting those looks. The problem with the Sixers in this case, as you guys talked about, just going the other way of, we've seen it before with smaller guys in height, but where as great as JJ Redick was, as fantastic as Seth Curry was in his role as a shooter next to Joel Embiid, we also saw where JJ Redick couldn't stay on the floor against the Boston Celtics, or Kevin Huerter destroys Seth Curry and he couldn't play in a game 7 because of the defensive problems that are there. Smaller for those two, but the shooting that they brought to the table, while this guy is 6'7", will the defensive issues at some point still crop up? I mean, look, it was some of the things that we were talking about last draft with how are they taking Jared McCain here right now when this guy is 6'3", and how's he going to play next to Tyrese Maxey when we're staring at another 6'7", 6'8" guy who can shoot with some athleticism, you can plug and play. When it came to Dalton Connect, And the answers, though, that we got from Jared McCain, we were surprised by them. So stranger things can happen, but yes, it tracks the way that you guys are talking about, where there are those defensive concerns where it's something to worry about, but the shooting, of course, can mask a lot of that when it comes to this particular player. All right, we move on and talk about some of the other guys that are also still in the tournament. I know we've talked about VJ a lot. Do you want to get to Derik Queen here and talk about Queen and Maryland? And since we were talking about bigs, and the guy is just a fantastic scorer. You look at him and he's like, how's he getting this stuff done? He doesn't look super athletic. He's got great footwork with how he scores. He can score from the perimeter. He can score from mid-range. He can score with his back to the basket. Very creative. I hate the long sleeves. I just admit that.
Any
it drives me crazy.
On a big man, I just instinctively do not trust them. That is a Kyle Neubeck draft red flag.
Yo, it drives me crazy with the long sleeves. And it's like, what are you hiding? We know you're young. Your body's not filled out yet. You may not look cut like, some of these other guys as of yet, and you're very young. That's okay. That's all right. But the guy can score, man. He can really put that ball in the basket.
Yeah, he can. My concern is, he's an okay at best rim protector. Like, I don't think he's going to anchor your defense. He's not really an elite shooter. And he doesn't really create all that much for his teammates either. Like, he's not a great passer. So he clearly has some one-on-one scoring ability. The question is, how much do you value that? How well does it translate to the next level? And is that sort of like the archetype of a big man that you want? And I think my answer for the most part is no, that's not the archetype of a big man that I want. And because of that, it'd be one thing if we were talking about having like an 8 through 14 pick, then you could sort of sell me on the scoring upside and the ability to grow. But when you're talking about what definitionally it has to be a top 6 pick, I would be pretty stunned if he is going to work his way into that range for me. Talented player, the kind of player that I could end up missing on if he improves in a big way. Just not sort of like the archetype that I gravitate towards. Certainly not the archetype that I would gravitate towards with this team built around Maxey and McCain, and somebody that I think has enough red flags where I would probably stay away with the pick that the Sixers have.
Yeah, I haven't, frankly, even done my due diligence on most of the other bigs in this draft. I think part of the reason I have a good sense of Maluach is watching him as a result of watching Cooper and watching Knueppel. Like, you're not necessarily tuning into Duke to see him, but he flashes and he pops and it's like, oh, that kid's got something to him. So, yeah, I think that of the bigs in this draft, Maluach is really the only one that I could see a coherent argument for at 6. Now, once you get past, let's say they get 6 and they're not enamored with it and they'd rather say, hey, if there's a team with multiple firsts that will trade up that's really interested in someone and we want to split that into, let's say, 10 and 25, or I'm just making up a scenario.
You don't have your spreadsheet, your NFL draft.
I don't have the real GM picks owed chart in front of me and all the other stuff. But if that's on the table, then you could maybe talk me into, all right, if Queen or somebody else in the front court, another guy who's not a true center that I've been told I should watch some more of is Colin Murray Boyles, who's more of like a forward center hybrid that people are excited about as a defensive prospect. That's somebody I would look into if you get further outside of that. But if we're talking the tippy top of the draft, which is where their pick has to be if they're going to keep it, it's Maluach or it's none of the bigs, I think.
Yeah. By the way, Maryland does play Grand Canyon 4:30 game on Friday. So if you guys want to check out
Fighting Colangelos.
Check them out, 4:35. And Duke plays the winner of the American St. Mary's matchup in the field of 68 there in Dayton. That's a 250 game on Friday. Quickly, just to go back to Baylor, because we do talk about VJ a lot, VJ Edgecombe, Kyle. Baylor plays, I just saw it, they play Mississippi State. 12 is one of the early games on Friday, 12:15. So if you want to check out VJ Edgecombe, but I know we said a lot about him. Not much change. It's just more of doing more scouting and an opportunity to see him on this bigger stage where all eyes will be on the tournament.
Yeah, and it's a good matchup for him, or at least for people who are trying to evaluate him as a draft prospect, because Josh Hubbard on Mississippi State is a good league guard. I think he's averaging something like 19 points a game. He's had a very good season for them. So if you're looking at Edgecombe as a guy that you want to be, a high level or a high impact defensive player, someone that maybe you throw on the other team's opposing guard and say, hey, I'm shutting you down, I'm taking this assignment, then that's a good test for him, right? It doesn't mean that they're going to change Edgecombe's role. He is sort of a hybrid player, someone who doesn't necessarily dominate the ball all the time, but we'll see how he does against Hubbard, if he's able to slow him down. And it's a nice test for him. I'm hoping for a lot of these guys that their teams are able to win, so we just get a longer and longer look at all these players, especially in a competitive, hostile environment that is the NCAA tournament. So yeah, look, VJ is someone that we all like because we see the athleticism pops. I think the intangibles are there that you see show up during the game. 3-point shot has come along second half of the year after a really, really rough start to the year, shooting the ball. For me, his future is going to come down to, is he a reliable enough self-creator to be a high-level prospect? Because that's the difference between him having a significant upside and being more of a 3-and-D player, which, again, as we were talking about with Kon Knueppel, I think the floor for Edgecombe is still pretty high. It's a guy who can help your team out quite a bit. But if you take a guy top 5 and he turns into, like a DeAnthony Melton type of player, I think a lot of people are going to end up being disappointed with that.
Sure. Yeah,
All
no,
right.
I'm really interested to see how he plays. And they're in the same bracket as Duke, right? I think they're in the same.
Yes. Same time.
Yep.
I need that matchup in a couple of rounds.
That would be the matchup right there. That would be the second round matchup right there. Duke versus Baylor in that second game on Sunday. That would be the matchup.
Come on, I want to hear about your guy from Oklahoma, your boy.
Yes. Fear. Oh man, I mean Oklahoma. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Look, because he's 6'4". I'm trying to see who they play. They play UConn, so that's a tough matchup right away. 8-9 matchup for UConn. A pissed off Hurley going against Oklahoma and what's going. But Jeremiah Fears, just a 6'4" guard. The shooting is very streaky, but the ball handling is very, very, very good. And for him, with the way that he can get past his defender, get to the basket, finish. When he is on, of course, when we talk about a streaky shooter and making the shots, when he's on, it looks great as a lead guard for Oklahoma. The problem for him, like most, is some of the defensive stuff and the shooting. He's 18, and these things still need to be developed. But he has come on in a big way. They play UConn on Thursday night. They play UConn late night game. So if everybody's able to stay up and watch that, please do. But in the SEC tournament, man, he had 29 and 28 in their 2 games against Georgia and Kentucky for what he was doing. The guy can score the basketball. He averaged 17 on the season, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So he is a willing passer. He will pass the rock, and he will do those things. But he's an electric guard. He's one of those guys that just kind of stands out. And that has been my thing with him. You guys know how much I like Trey Johnson as well. For what he's doing with Texas, they have to sneak their way in that field of 68 part with Dayton. But Fears is one that has really shot up and gotten into the conversation for what he's done. So 6'4", the measurables, of course, don't stand out where you love them, but sometimes you just have these electric guards. He's the same height as VJ Edgecombe, but the athleticism is different. Those types of things, the defensive prowess that VJ Edgecombe has is different. But this kid is still a lottery pick, projected to be a lottery pick. So if he has a big tournament, if he makes a pretty good run and he stands up against UConn, even if it's just a one game, but he has one of those 30-point games and he keeps his team in it, maybe has some of those good intel coming in, has his individual workouts, and it works out for him. He's a fun kid to watch at the guard position.
So,
yeah.
Oh no, go ahead, Derik. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, that shot is big. Like that, whether or not you believe that can translate. Look, he good from the line. I think pretty good from the mid range. Has that pull up jumper. Can he extend that? Because he only shot 27% from 3-point range. How much confidence you have in his ability to extend that is going to go a long way. Because he does have, he's like 6'3", 6'4", like a 6'5" wingspan. So not exactly greatest defensive tools either. You need his scoring to really translate. That shot is going to be, I think, front and center to any analysis. And some people will have some confidence in it because, like I said, he does have some projectable skills that make you think that he will develop it. But that needs to be a surefire weapon going forward.
So all I was going to say before I rudely interrupted Derik was I think Jeremiah Fears is almost the perfect player to show why evaluating the draft is difficult, but especially difficult for one and done type guys, right? So Fears reclassified to join this class. So he's super young. He'll only be 18 when he's drafted. He'll be one of the youngest guys in the class. And so that's already, that's a hurdle as a young player who's not as developed. Like, that's step one. Step two is he's basically had 3 different seasons in one, right? Oklahoma started 13-0. He was cooking. He's averaging 18 points a game, 50% from the field. They were, I believe, at that point, like a top 10, top 15 team in the country. Next 12 games, so almost equivalent sample, they're 3-9, and he shot 36% from the field, not from three, 36% from the field. And then now in this last little stretch at the end of the year, he has reminded teams or prospect evaluators, whatever, oh man, this kid's got a real good handle. He's got some great downhill speed. I've talked to some people that compared him to maybe like a Monte Ellis type guy who's just an electric scoring type guard. The problem is that he is so young and that Oklahoma team is so limited that his usage is just insane. Like, he's got, I think, close to a 32% usage rate, which is when you talk about that at the NBA level, that's like the most ball dominant seasons you could have. It's like James Harden, Joel Embiid. And so he's turned the ball over a lot. His assist to turnover is ugly. And I worry that, like, we did a lot of talking about Isaiah Collier last year, right? And I can see some comparisons between those two, right? Like, they have playmaking upside, live ball handling, they got good speed, but you don't trust the shot, you don't really trust the defense, and you have to pick apart, okay, how much of this is the team and the context, and how much of this are the flaws this player has as a prospect. So he's a really tough one for me. I understand watching the good parts, why he has played himself into this lottery top 10 type consideration. But boy, I don't think I would want to be the team taking the risk on him, because it's all over the place.
It reminds me, back in the Draft Express days, Mike Schmitz would put a scouting report video, and it would be like 5 minutes of like all of the positive traits the player had, and you'd be like, I'm all in. And then it would be 5 minutes of all of his negatives. It's like, he's undraftable. And he reminds me of like that exact archetype, because what is good is legitimately very good. He has some pretty big weaknesses. Like Kyle mentioned, he just turned 18 throughout the course of the season. Like, he came on to Oklahoma's campus as a 17-year-old and was thrust into a high-scoring, high-usage role, which is a real cooking them. And it was cooking. His, we talked about the conference numbers a bit before. His conference numbers, not great. 38.3% from the field, 23.4% from 3-point range. But he has the ability to get to his spots and get to the free throw line. And that's one way. That's why, like, if that jump shot, and particularly that 3-point jump shot, comes around, I think he can be a really, really intriguing prospect. Because like Devon mentioned, he doesn't have tunnel vision. Like, he's a willing passer. And if you can get the free throw line and put it all together, next thing you know, you've got a true, legitimate 3-level scorer. The intrigue is there. It is what makes us so tough. It's one thing to be like, all right, well, he's struggling from three now. What will he be like when he's 24? It's almost impossible to make that projection on a consistent, reliable basis. And there's almost nobody that, is dependent on that evaluation more than he is.
Wow.
We have a lot of players to get to. Well, not a lot, but we have some players to get to that we just want to give our thoughts as the tournament gets underway here shortly that we wanted to talk about. So make sure you check us out at allphly.com.
Look at that beautiful graphic with the animation and the buzzer sound, man.
It was funny because we were warned that the graphic was coming. We saw the graphic beforehand, but when it happened, I was like, oh no, did I do something? Did I hit a button? Like, what's going on here? It's going to take a little bit of an adjustment period for myself as well.
That's right. Marty Marr says bonus coverage. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Marr. We get some bonus coverage. So my last thing on Fears is that with you guys talking about his age and what he did with the 3 seasons, Kyle, is that certain players, when you look at those highlight videos, Derik, some of the stuff you can separate from the weaknesses and the strengths that Jonathan Givony would put together, and you'd be like, that's not going to change. That's who that guy is going to be.
Yeah.
Some of these players, though, you look at them and you say, yes, I can fall in love with the strengths and the weaknesses, like, oh, let's pull back a little bit. But sometimes you just see guys, again, that you like, and you say, that can probably be corrected. That issue can be corrected. He seems like a good kid. He seems like a willing worker from the information that you get. And that he's one of those players for me where Fears, and I look at him like, I like that. I like that. He's 18. Some of that stuff, he's been the best. A lot of times they have those bad warts and they can't get out of them. They still need to be coached out. And when you're walking onto a campus at 17 and cooking some of these guys that are still 21 years old, right? You're playing some of these older players that are still around, and you're 17 and you're giving them the business, and some of the other ones that are your age and you still are out there cooking them, you're going to hit that wall. And he hit that wall and it wasn't good. The bounce back too is what's important. And as Kyle, you mentioned, he bounced back. And now these 2 games in the conference tournament where he puts up 28 and 29, what is he going to do now against this defensive UConn that is ticked off? They didn't like how things went for them in the tournament. Hurley is ticked off. The players are hanging on the rim against them with Creighton, and they're all frustrated. How's he going to respond to this? And I really want to see how he responds to a matchup like this against the defending national champion who has been there. They know what this is all about, and how he responds as a young player in this moment. I like a lot of stuff about him. And you're probably right in the end that maybe I don't want to take him at 6. I don't want to take him at 5 over VJ Edgecombe. I don't want to do that. But I like the player, and it's just an interesting one to keep an eye on here in the tournament. Sorry, Derik.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, he's got a father, Jeremy Fears, and a brother, Jeremy Fears, and he's Jeremiah. So there's a little bit of like a Ricky Council situation going on here. Yeah, I don't know how that factors into your evaluation, but I just thought I'd throw that out there as well.
If he's got the confidence of Ricky, I'm in. I'm all in. Go get him, Jay Fears. Go get him. That's it. A few more prospects that we wanted to talk about. We already mentioned Illinois and their schedule. We talked about Trey Johnson having to play in the Dayton part of things to get into the tournament. Kyle, is anybody else that you wanted to kind of throw some names out there of some players that you want to keep an eye on here?
There's one name, and I think he's probably a non-fit with this Sixers roster, unfortunately, but a kid who, when I have watched him, I have really enjoyed what I've seen, and he's risen up boards quite a bit from where he was at before the year. Jase Richardson, and that's Jason Richardson's son, plays at Michigan State. He was actually a bench player for a good portion of this season. He's only got 11 starts on the year. So that tells you a lot about, kind of where his stock was at coming into the season. He's played his way into lottery territory. And I just think that the feel and the craft that he has as a, 18, 19-year-old guard is really special. I actually think if you watch him, there are some shades of like what we saw from McCain, right? Like the weird angle scoop layups and the footwork. And like, so there have been some people who have made some comps to a guy like Jalen Brunson because he's not a big guard, right? This is not a kid who would come here and it's like, hey, He can play next to either Maxey and McCain at any time. Like, there are real concerns about, a guy at his size making the jump to the next level. But when you consider that, I think he's only like 6'2.5", 6'3", and you know how I feel about the smaller guards.
He's not taller than you.
Good finishing ability, like good touch around the basket. He has shot the hell out of the ball. He shot 41% from three this year on only 3 a game, but I think the form is good. The free throw percentages are really good. Like, all the indicators are there. He can finish with both hands. And then there's also the NBA legacy, right? Like, a lot of these guys that have parents that played in the NBA end up coming to the league very polished. They kind of know what they're coming into, right? The grind of the NBA, like, they have a great resource there to provide them with, like, here's how you navigate year 1, year 2, year 3. So, like, if I, maybe not for the Sixers, so I don't know that people need to really dial into Michigan State if you're just a Sixers fan, but if you're looking for somebody who I think in that part of the draft, maybe in that like 10 to 15 range, could outperform that draft slot, he's one of the guys I would bet on, because I think the instincts that he has and the ability that he has at his age are pretty special.
Yeah, to Kyle's point about the way that he ended the season, last 11 games, they were 9-2, 17.3 points per game, shot 42.3% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per night. So he had a huge increase in usage toward the end, and he played really good basketball. I agree. I don't really see the fit on the Sixers. If he were 2 inches taller, we could have a different conversation. But when you already have Maxey and McCain, that would be a tough selection. But he is intriguing.
Yep. One more before we get away, and that is going back to UConn, because McNeely is a guy that a lot of people talk about with his shooting at that small forward, power forward type position. Big guy in a sense where he's standing somewhere around 6'7", 6'8", as a guy on the wing with his shooting ability, and talented guy, of course, for what he is able to do. That translates to the NBA. So the Connecticut-Oklahoma game, watch out for McNeely also, because that's an interesting one. He will be out of the range of the Sixers in the top 6, should they keep that pick. But just one that I'm intrigued. He played with some really good guys in high school, Flagg and all those guys. So I'm really curious to see how his draft stock looks once things really get underway.
Yeah. No, he is in the mold of what you would want, because he is a prototypical size for a forward. I don't think he has the skill level or the upside to warrant a top 6 pick, but he is someone that you would, flag if you traded down or got a second pick.
Yep. Also, somebody brought up earlier, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, brought up, they said the kid from St. Joe's. Well, it's, Fleming is the kid from St. Joe's, and he's later in the first round, and a lot of things will help him. None your business. Thank you. Fleming from St. Joe's is a fit too. Rasheed Fleming, St. Joe's, 6'9", 240. He's 20, from the area, and just a guy who is still has some raw game to him, but the body type, the athleticism, how that translates to the NBA, that is really, really connected with the scouts in the NBA. So they are in the NIT. They actually play on Wednesday, so we can't go to the game because Wednesday we'll be doing some Sixers basketball. So we have to, I think so. Maybe you can go to the game. You can get you in there. So go to the game and check them out. Do some scouting for Rasheed Fleming, because he's on the radar, and it's always good to see those local guys on the radar. He's definitely on the radar. Xavier Brown, not necessarily just yet, but he made the all-conference team for the A-10, even though they were ousted in the second game. St. Joe's has some talent for Billy Lang's team. They have some big-time talent. So Rasheed Fleming is none of your business is who he's talking about, Rasheed Fleming from St. Joe's. All right. I think that'll do it for us, right? We got enough of those guys in there. Derik, do we have to do a tankathon spin on non-game days?
I don't think we have been doing any, but it is sort of...
It's a draft and March Madness.
It's a draft show.
I feel like we should.
Sure.
All right, let's do the tankathon.
That being said,
spin.
we just got the number 1 pick last night, and I feel like we're pressing our luck here a little bit. But sure, I'll give it a spin.
All right, give it a spin. They stay in the top 6.
Never mind. We didn't actually want to do it anyway.
They got 8 again. There you go.
Oh boy.
We'll just move on.
Well, if you want to
Back at
talk
it
about an
tomorrow.
even more positive subject, we could talk about apparently Marcus Morris ripped Daryl Morey today on Kevin O'Connor's podcast. So that'll be. I saw somebody mention it earlier, and
I saw that too.
I'm trying to scan over some comments, but we'll have to address that on maybe pregame or postgame tomorrow because I have to actually listen to the whole thing myself before I get too deep in the weeds on it.
Hey,
Yeah,
maybe we have to have Marcus Morris moment of the night on the show. Maybe we got to see if he'll come on the show and discuss the problems. Daryl Morey is a liar, as Money Mar says.
I was about to make a joke, but it'll be an off-air discussion once again. So that'll. Marcus Morris, you're welcome on the show anytime.
Anytime.
Just don't listen to any of our previous shows, or at least not my parts of them.
All right. Everybody, let's get to it. It's the world famous roll call on a Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today through overtime with our new buzzer graphic and whatnot.
Love it.
Thank you all for being here for some prospect talk. Thank you to Brian Knight, to SB Cole, to my
What up,
girl
SB?
Nona,
Hey, Nona.
to Jess with the Purple Heart,
She's got the Purple Heart.
to Mello 3-point, to Vic,
What up, Vic?
Money Mar, you better love somebody,
To love somebody, to love somebody, to love somebody.
Bootzilla, mom's
Boots!
grandchildren in the house. Hey, Mom, how you doing?
She's here. Hey, Mom.
Inigo Yams Toya, who is the #1 Maluach fan in all of PHLY. I could tell you that for sure. INS, Kyle Wright. Who
What up,
else we got
Kyle?
here? My computer, once again, being very slow. None ya business hanging out with us today. Always fun. Noob, not to be confused with my last name, the other noob. Neil Deaver. Darkness is in the building. Thank you, everybody,
Turn the lights down.
for being here today. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And hit that thumbs up to say thank you, super producer Bree, for giving it all she has every day, even when we're acting like complete maniacs. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, all of you. We'll be back tomorrow night for Sixers Thunder, correct? Or am I messing up the schedule?
7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock tip time from Oklahoma City.
Perfect. See you guys then. Until then, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Get ready for March Madness, baby.
Presented by Bet365 as always. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.